Good evening, everyone. What do you mean here? Glad you could drop by. If you like this video, please share it, subscribe, leave a little comment down below, and I'd like to hear what you got to say. And don't be afraid, because this is the First Amendment rights, and I honor them, and that's what they are. I want to address something. Maybe not everybody's been paying attention to this, but you ever notice how the Democratic Party operates? Now, first of all, let's understand two things. The Democratic Party is a very powerful organization. They have vast amounts of resources at their fingertips. They're heavily communications amongst other states, in control by other Democrats. And they have vast amounts of financial resources. And many Republicans usually sign on to bills which they put out in front of them. With that said, let's look at something here. You ever notice, this is an analogy, by the way. You ever notice how a dog chews a calf bone, okay? And inside that calf bone is the marrow. He'll chew that bone until he gets to that marrow, right? Once he gets that marrow, the rest of the bone he throws away. Think of your amendment rights that way. These political politicians, these parties, have one thing in mind. Get into where those rights are and delete them. Period. Delete them, get rid of them, subject you to a whole nest of rules that they want to lay out. Now, here's a part to that. Your First Amendment, Third, Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, Seventh, all your amendment rights. Now, I didn't mention the Second Amendment rights, even though they want them, but they want all of them. Your Second Amendment rights is just something in their way. If they can alleviate the Second Amendment right, it's smooth sailing. And a lot of that is because they try to pass on this common knowledge, I would say, of how the assault weapon is this, assault weapon is that. We've heard that story so many times. But they don't mention the knifings and the hammers and all the other stuff. We're not going to that anymore. But here's the thing. Your Second Amendment does help a lot to protect those rights that are not yet checked. Yet they go after them. They do go after them. It's like a dog in the bone. Politicians are the same way. They want to get to the core of your rights. They want to remove those rights from you. Now, they'll promise you the world. They'll promise you food. They'll promise you medical. They'll promise you anything you need, because they want you to be loaning to them. They want you to be obligated to them. And the more they work on that, the more they want you to be part of them, because they want to make sure that they're indispensable. It's kind of like removing your ability to self-sustain yourself. We don't want you to do that. We want you to be obligated to us. We know what you need. It's just like what Obama's speech he made said a long time ago. I would say not too long, but long enough. It goes like this. In the international order that we worked for generations to build, ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. Order and progress can only come to those who surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign. In other words, you surrender them, we're going to take them from you anyway, or more or less bribe them from you. This is a scary part about a lot of this. With these red flag laws, they just don't go after Second Amendment rights, they go after all your rights. But not just that is the most important part, is the way they obtain to go after them. The Supreme Court is our battlefield. This is what we hire other people to defend our rights. If they can ever change that, they'll switch everything around to their own personal liking. This is the important part about all this. These parties have become so powerful, the Democrat Party might say. It's so powerful now that I wonder if they're really a party, or I would say the ruling factor. Because it just seems that they just make the rules and nobody stands in front of them, nobody stops them. Oh yeah, this state will do this same thing, and New York will do the same thing, California will do the same thing, Colorado will do the same thing, Oregon will do the same thing. And you know what? If you really sit there and you look at these laws, they're all the same. No deviation, maybe here and there, but the same language is the same. Which is the scary part about it. It's like that dog gnawing that bone, trying to get to that marrow. Well, just think of your rights the same way. Your Bill of Rights is the same thing. You got this Democratic dog chewing on your rights, trying to get to the core of it. And once they find that weak spot, you bet you sure they're going to rip them right from you. People need to speak out more. People need to do something other than not let these people do what they're doing. And yes, the rich are holding our politicians at bay, or they own them, whatever. And yet you get a lot of influence from Europe. You get a lot of influence from the multi-rich too. So the combination, and then all these other organizations that are just outright trying to strip every constitutional right from you, because they believe that socialism and communism is probably the best way to live. Let's get back to that same thing. We'll give you this, we'll give you that. All you have to do is just give it to us, and everything's all fine for now. So you got to really, really, really watch these politicians, because they're using every trick in the book. Yes, now we have the right to carry. Okay. But we're going to tax you for everything. We're going to tax your ammunition. Well, you can't buy ammunition over the mail. We're going to limit the amount of ammunition you can have. We're going to eliminate the kind of firearm you have. We're going to make this firearm difficult. We're going to make it so you can't carry this firearm in all these safe spaces. You see how this works, right? And not just one state do it, they all do it. It's almost like reading a script. And everybody, it's like a script or a chorus line, and everybody sings the same tune here. Oh, that's exactly what these politicians in control states are doing. Here's the point to this. These are rights. To them, no. They're privileges. That's what's happening here. They're saying you don't have rights, you have privileges. Here in my home state, New Jersey, you had no rights. So you want to exercise any one of your rights, you got to fill out a bunch of papers, send in some money, and wait for approval or denial. And then if you get a denial, you have to go through the process all over again and maybe make a few changes on the application, and hopefully they'll try it again, right? But that's what happens. And with all this, it's the point that they don't care about whether you have the right to defend yourself or secure yourself. So, I guess the question here is, how far are they intend to go? And how short of a time? Well, they have a timeline, it seems like, because they're pushing hard. They're pushing really hard. Even though the Supreme Court keeps saying, text, tradition, history, they try to twist text and history around to their own way of thinking, or just literally thumb their nose up at it and say, we're going to do what we want. When they do that sort of thing, how can you justify the law? Well, it's like going for a judge yourself. Let's say you got a violation and you have to go in front of the judge. Okay, well, what are you going to tell the judge? I did it because I felt like it. Well, that's exactly what some of these state governments are saying. We're going to do what we want and you can't say anything. which is wrong because it denies you your rights. You're citizens of the United States. I don't care what your race, your religious beliefs, or anything about what that may be. Maybe the Democrats like to play that race card. Maybe they like to play this card with that card, democracy versus constitutionality, whatever they want to play. But remember one thing, you're all American citizens. So it doesn't just affect one set of people, eventually it'll affect all people. Because whether you own a firearm or not, let's just say they are successful in stripping us your constitutional rights. You think those red flag laws are going to just disappear? No. They'll expand them into something else. They'll continue to put people against people until eventually it gets so bad that you won't be able to walk out your door without getting in trouble. So that's why it's so important to step on these politicians and step on them hard, because you gotta let them know this is paid for in blood. Maybe we don't have the kind of money they have, and maybe they can just literally whip a few $1 million out of our tax money and give to here and there. We try to vote people in to work for us, but if they don't want our voice heard on the floor, they'll do everything they can to squash that voice. And it reminds me of someone else that I've been trying to work on to do the same thing, but I'm not going to that point right now. I got my own speculation on that. Your Second Amendment rights are yours. Your First Amendment rights, your Third Amendment rights, your Fourth Amendment rights, that Bill of Rights is yours. They want to play this game where you will either surrender your rights to an all-powerful sovereign, but you have to order and obey, or order and produce, however you want to word the damn thing. And we're not too small-minded, because that's not even, I can't think of the right word for that poor thing, but it's just the thing here is they play us for fools, because they're constantly manipulating, altering, changing, because they want you to get wore down. They want to block every roadblock off and put you in checkmate so you can't move anymore. Then you have to surrender your rights, because they're just going to take them from you. You can't let that happen. Surrender nothing. Give up nothing. Because once you give up your rights, there's people in Europe, there's a lot of politicians like to see us be part of. They ain't too pretty. Take a look at Canada. Take a look at Australia. Take a look at Venezuela. See how the people, take a look at Cuba. See how they live. You don't think it can't happen here? Well, that's a pretty hefty experiment to play. Until then, don't be afraid to defend yourselves and your family. And think about it. Because those rights are yours. It's like a dog gnawing that bone. They want to get to that marrow. Once they get to that marrow, they'll discard the bone. Once you get to those constitutional rights, they'll discard us and do everything they want with us. Like I said, this is not a joke. This is serious stuff. That's why they're constantly hammering it, looking for a weak spot. And once they get that weak spot, they're going to exploit it. And we may not be able to stop it. Till then, see you around.